Hello, all, and welcome to Essence of Wonder. How are you doing today? This is an exciting show for us. We're going to talk to Nisi Shawl, and of course, joining me for this discussion will be Karen Castelletti. Hi, Karen. How are you doing today? Joining me once again, co-hosting the show. I think, as often happens with these things, Karen is muted, and therefore I will ignore this transition and move straight to Nisi. Nisi, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm just splendid. Splendid.
Why? Hold on, that doesn't make sense. Why is it so splendid today?
This is so great that we're doing this show.
That's true. It is great that we're doing this show, and it's much thanks to you. I remember when we originally talked, and you were surprised. You said, "Wait, so we can build this show to be something coherent throughout, with a trend throughout the thing?" And we told you, "Yes, whatever you want." And then I remember making a joke about singing on the show because David Brin actually sang on the show, and you said, "Yes, I would love to sing on the show," and I was like, "What?" And it started evolving from there.
Yeah, I do love singing. Singing, being a singer is one of my alternate careers that I came up with, and another one being an architect. But we won't get into that now.
Well, I just found out about it now. So, if there is a mission to Mars, would you volunteer to be the architect for building that colony and to go there and test the buildings yourself?
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, heck yeah. Well, I think we skipped ahead a little bit. I would like to introduce you. You are the author of the 2016 Nebula finalist Everfair. You won the 2008 award, now known as as Otherwise, for your short story collection Filter House. You edited New Suns, original speculative fiction by people of color, and you won the 2020 Locus Award for that, for Best Anthology. And the way I was first introduced to you is when you collaborated with Cynthia Ward and Kate Tempest Bradford on Writing the Other, which is now effectively the standard on inclusivity in writing speculative fiction. That's a lot.
I know. I try not to introduce myself because I keep skipping things.
but then you also sing.
Yeah, yeah, and compose songs, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember being at a conference in 2004 and meeting this guy, now on my Facebook. That's how we're still in touch. And he was a pretty cool guy in the security industry. And then I found out he's also an opera singer. And I was like, okay, I'm going to step away. I would actually like to start by touching on, before we move on to this incredible show we have with song and stories and religion and wonder, to me reaching out to you. So not so long ago, BLM got once again a lot of traction and things that happened that we're not going to right now, of course. And I reached out to you. We wanted to make a statement about Black Lives Matter in support. And I remember we talked to each other about not bothering you. And eventually I did reach out and you did say, and I really appreciated that about you. I actually do not have time to talk, but here is some advice. Maybe you could share with us a little bit about what with you during that difficult time and some of that advice.
Well, what happened with me was just very much an ongoing thing. I just recently saw, actually again on Facebook, we're going back to Facebook, I saw a photo from 55 years ago of protesters with a sign saying, "End police brutality." So it was not, although this has been ramped up and although there is new attention being paid to the Black Lives Matter movement, it was not something that was moving me toward more action and more statements and more protest because I had already been there. So what was going on with me was focusing on what I do, which is writing fantasy and science fiction. And that's what I was hunkering down to at that time.
Yeah, this reminds me of actually what Dave Chappelle when he finally spoke in the wake of George Floyd, what he said was, for once everyone else seems to have it and be carrying this conversation in this moment. Like, you're all doing great. you know, it very much is. There are many people who've been saying this for 50 years or longer, as you point out.
Yep.
And you know, finally for a minute, if it, you know, it seems that it's the topic of conversation for everyone. But you know, no, you've been doing this work for a long time too.
Yeah, so I hope that answers your question, Gadi.
I'm actually going to push a little bit. I would really like if you're willing for your advice on how to approach this.
I'm curious what advice you gave Gadi. Someone who was also trying to weigh in on that. I'm curious.
So I am not 100% sure, but I believe what I was talking about was how saying things is helpful and doing things to back up what you say is ultra helpful. And I pointed to the example of the Science Fiction Writers of America, who issued a statement and then went ahead and said, you know what, anybody who's a person of color who wants to join SIFWA, no dues this year. So it was like they were putting their wallets on the line, you know? And I wanted to see how, well, I just wanted you to give yourselves a chance of doing that. And I also, I think, mentioned that inclusivity is a better term to talk about, well, being inclusive in your representation of people than diversity, because diversity assumes that there is something normal and then you diverge from it. So those are the two things I remember.
Oh, those
I have
both
no memory.
very good advice.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. It made me appreciate you even more, that on the one hand you feel free to say, actually, no, I am busy right now, and still give me some advice on how to move forward. That was a combination that was the height of professionalism that I haven't really encountered much in my life. So I want to say thank you for that and share it with our audience.
I would use the word classy.
Ooh. You know what? I'm not sure Nisi is such a classy person. Are you, Nisi? How would you define yourself there?
Oh, I don't know about classy. I like classy, but and I'll take it. But I think the word I want to go for, the emulation I'm up for, is gracious.
Ooh.
I think I should. I maybe it was Barack Obama's something that he said about class. It was definitely a president. I thought it was Obama who said that real class is never making somebody else feel uncomfortable for the ways that they are.
Yeah.
And I liked that view of classy, and so I'll clarify that is the sense in which I'm using the word.
I'll just step right in here and say that sometime along this entire broadcast, we're going to talk to Nisi about, and I quote, storied past.
Uh-oh.
But we do have one more thing to cover before we jump right in and start talking about religion with our great guest. And the name is really long, so if you'll forgive me, I will humble myself and read the portion that I can get right, with apologies. Iya Oshun Miwa will join us. And that is really a mind-blowing section from you, because I got to watch it. It's recorded. And we'll move on to music and steampunk and so much other stuff and influences and everything else. But before we do that, I think this show is truly about wonder. And I stopped and gave a lot of thought to what wonder is. And two things jump to mind. The first one is a Greek term that I haven't ever found a translation for, called kairos. It's the moment in time, the exact moment in time, and nothing else like it. And I heard a truly wonderful explanation for that by example in a rhetoric course I happened to listen to for a couple hours, where the description was of a date where you're out with your partner and there is the moment when you know you should kiss. It's just magical. And if you miss that moment, getting it back is going to be so difficult, if ever. And I find that to be wondrous timing. I also find when I read a book and all of a sudden there is something happening which might be magic, I find that to be wondrous. And I want to turn that to you and kind of ask you, what do you find wondrous?
Well, most of my life I have spent trying to find the wondrous in everything around me. I can remember being 5, 6 years old and sitting on the laundry hamper and thinking, this is what the world is about, is finding wonder. This is what we are here for. This is the purpose of life, is to enjoy the wonder around us. There was one moment like that back in my junior high days. I cannot explain what was happening. Perhaps it was a flood of hormones, but I walked through the cafeteria and I looked at the cafeteria lady serving the chili burgers or whatever it was. And she gave me a look of just utter pure tenderness and love out of nowhere. I don't even remember her name. And then I went down a little further and there was someone, tallying up what we've got. And the same thing, deep, deep love pouring out of their eyes. And then I went and sat down with my friend, and my friend, it was the same thing, just a flood of beauty and wonder and love. So no explanation for it. I think that's an essential element of wonder. And yeah, that was, for me, the essence of wonder.
There's a sense in your description that reminds me of just the immediacy of the feeling and the attention. It's something that I actually think a lot of moments can be and have the seeds of feeling wondrous if you could completely immerse yourself in them and pay attention to the people with you and just really, really feel what is happening. And a lot of the best storytelling, I think, instills the sense of wonder because they capture it so thoughtfully. And that a lot of the creative process is really actually about perceiving and how you perceive and understand the story you're trying to share, or the moment you're trying to share.
Yeah, definitely.
I find it interesting that you both are talking about people, other people, meaning we're not talking about wonder we necessarily. So in dance, often we have a connection with ourselves, a connection with the music, a connection with our partner, a connection with the floor. And what you're both referring to is our own observation, but of relations with others, kind of a meditative state that's kind of shared, maybe a connection. Am I reading this right?
Well, I would say that particular moment was about that for me, but it's also true that I find the same sort of appreciation for myself in inanimate objects, in plants, in animals. It's more universal, I think.
Yeah, places. There's a perceiver or there's it's in the eye of someone. So in that sense, there are people. There's you, the you that observes, but places absolutely can have that sense. I'm also reminded of a quote from actually by Jim Butcher somewhere in the Dresden Files, where he's talking about all the different sorts of pain. And he goes through, and it's just a nice little tour of the different sorts of pain you could feel. Like the little empty pain of leaving something behind, taking the next step forward, walking out of something familiar and safe into the unknown. And he visits a couple others that are nice, but he hits one that says, and if you're very, very lucky, there are a very few blazing hot little pains you feel when you realize that you are standing in a moment of utter perfection, an instance of triumph or happiness or mirth, which at the same time cannot possibly last and yet will remain with you for life. And I love that feeling I love that articulation of just realizing you're in one of those moments. And it almost hurts that you can't hold on to it or bottle it up. And so we do lots of things like write them down and tell them to others.
Yeah.
I think we can keep talking about this forever, trying to nail it down and what it means. But I think it's time for us to move on to our section on religion. And I know you do introduce it in the recording, but I'll hand it over to you, Nisi.
So this is a segment talking with my godmother, who I who is for me, you know, one of the conduits to wonder, what she has taught me and what she speaks about. Yeah, she's got it down. She's in touch with it.
What a compliment to be called a conduit to wonder.
That is truly amazing. And on that note, we'll go to that recording and see what we have. With wonder.
Hello, I'm Miwa Ianifa Fajambola Fatun Miche. Please introduce yourself, Yeye.
Okay. I want to begin by saying Alafia. That is a Yoruba greeting. In saying Alafia, I am asking that you have good health and be at peace with your neighbor. Although we sometimes give this greeting casually, this is a time when that greeting has special meaning. To be in good health at every level is a prayer that we should be uttering now and a goal that we should be reaching for as we are faced with this pandemic. And the fact that it is a pandemic lets us know that we're all in this together. So peace with your neighbors is part of our salvation right now. Nisi gave you several of my names and titles, and I reduce it to Yeye. I have most people call me Yeye, which is part of the chieftaincy title of Yeye Woro, which means mother of the many, or woman chief. But it is easier for most people to call me Yeye or call me Tish, because otherwise, if you called all of my names every time, you'd get tired and I would never get a chance to say anything. So my name is Louis Satish. Most of you know me as Louis Satish, and probably as the author of Jambalaya, the Natural Woman's Book of Personal Charms and Practical Rituals, which I published in 1985, and which has enjoyed not only a long life, but a resurgence of energy because its content comes in relevant again at this time. My intention in writing that book was first and foremost to introduce the basics of Africana spirituality and to take it out of the realm of the ooh-wee spooky spookies that had many people afraid to embrace the wisdom that comes out of African culture. The second thing was to overcome the sexism that had been infused into our tradition, to show the place of the divine feminine and the place of women in it, you know, to help us overcome some of the isms, the racism, sexism, classism, etc., and also to put as much power in the hands of the individual as we could to make people self-sufficient and to create sustainable practices. And those things are needed always, always. So I'm the author of that. I am a seasoned storyteller. I am a community activist, a ritual designer and producer. And, you know, recently I have resurrected my abilities as a visual artist and an arts and crafts person. So that's pretty much what I'm up to these days.
Yeah, we could talk all day about what you're up to. Let's leave it with that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I wanted to talk about was how we know each other.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you exactly when we met, where we met, what it was like for me.
Mm.
I went to a weekend event, sort of a workshop in northern Michigan that you were the star of. And I came into the room and you were sitting in a rocker, speaking in your deep, mellifluous voice, telling stories about people who messed with your head rag. And I fell instantly in love.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. That's very interesting, because that story is an example of emanating personal power. I was in a workshop, and in part of the workshop, we were trying to feel each other's auras, or to feel the energy that was emanating from each person's body. And I had my gele on, which is very much an African woman's thing. How we adorn our head, says something about our place in nature, our place in the culture. And I remember looking up and seeing this big blonde woman coming toward me, Now, historically, there's a thing about white people touching Black people's head. You know that, right?
Oh, I do. I just wrote a whole essay about that.
There's a whole lot that could be said about that. And I saw her coming, and what was more aggravating, she had a Southern accent, and she had no understanding about culture. So she came over to me and said, "Will you take that rag off your head?" So, and the immediate impulse is to knock her down. But the spirit who whispers in my ear, she said, "Let her do it." And so I took the scarf off of my head, and the woman ran her hand over the top of my head, and she fell and hit the floor. She hit the floor. For the next 10 years, whenever I encountered her, she went around telling people the story of how the energy coming out of my head knocked her down, And I think it was a double lesson for her, both in spiritual energy and in cultural awareness, okay? Now, what's interesting to me, Nisi, is my sharpest memory of first meeting you, what lingers. I know the workshop that you're talking about, and we did several workshops together that turned into being legendary, right?
Yes.
But what stands out for me, I remember there was a workshop where we were dealing with dreams. And I think it was during the break, you and I were talking, and you said that you had had a dream where you went under the water and did battle with a giant crab. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, I remember.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
And I remember I think you were working in the bookstore at the time. And I said to you, Nisi, I think that dream is trying to tell you that you should write science fiction. Do you remember me saying that?
I totally remember that. Yes, I do.
Okay. Yes, I do. So, Mother Crab, she made herself, and you have done an amazing job of bringing the spiritual into your work you know, and I really, really congratulate you on taking that step and doing that work.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, for me, yeah, the spiritual is what it's all about, and there ain't nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit, because for both of us, the spiritual is related to our understanding of the world via Ifa. So let's talk a little bit about what Ifa is about.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, most of the time when people talk about Ifa, they talk about the divination system that is most well known to come out of Nigeria. But in truth, the business of performing divination with cowrie shells, cola nuts, chains, divining chains, that practice is found all the way from the tip of South Africa into the Mediterranean and Southern Europe. And, you know, some people will find Bible verses that say they cut in the sand, you know. There are lines that are drawn on the Ifa tray. We have a tray, a divining tray. And what we do in Ifa is we do invocations to open the portal between heaven and earth and to access the surviving intelligence of the ancestors, you know. So Ifa contains the patterns of existence that address universal principles through cultural specificity. You know, all of us make cultural notations on universal principles. Everybody on earth is subject to universal principles. How that gets, how we receive that information and how we interpret that information is by different systems. And Ifa is a most elaborate and rich system that informs all aspects of life. So the first thing you have to do when dealing with Ifa is know that time is not linear.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Time is a spiral. And we travel up and down the spiral, and there are interconnected links to what we call the past, the present, and the future. And there are links between the world of the minerals, the plants, the animals, the people, and those that are in other dimensions. And Ifa speaks of all of this when one opens those portals and uses the devices, the shells or the cola nuts or the chain that helps to tell the story. Now, you know, that's the story.
Yes.
The story.
So when I start out trying to explain, when someone is like, could you please tell me about Ifa? And people do ask me that because I'm not just standing on a street corner preaching about it.
Right.
When they ask me, what I start out with is the concept of balance, the concept of alignment, which is why you would do any divination, is to get yourself in alignment and get yourself in balance.
Right.
So to me, that is where I start people out, and then I get them to the divination. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So your tactic is to put them in the center of the tray?
Yes. Yes. And there's I use You know how people will say, I didn't ask to be born?
Ah,
I say, oh, yes, you did.
yes, you did, baby.
You asked to be born. You asked to be born to these particular parents to live out this particular story. That's
Yep.
what I tell them. And Ifa can tell you how to best do that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, you know, I think most people don't understand. There's a couple of things that I find confuses people. Okay. Most people don't realize that they have a contract with creation. They have a contract with creation, and everybody came here to be, that is to exist, to do certain things, and to have the resources and the experiences to fulfill that contract. And because we have dealt with Western thought and Western religion, the next battle that comes up is having to talk to people about destiny, chance, and choice. Those three things interact with each other so that we come in with several layers of possibility for destiny. We encounter other people and things by chance, and then we make choices, hopefully choices that help us to fulfill the best of the destiny that we came here with. You know, everybody has light and shadow, high road and low road, and we encounter people and things that elevate us on the path, and some things that knock us down on the path, and we make choices that either aid our fulfillment or impede our fulfillment. And so one goes to consult Ifa to find out, how are you doing on your contract with creation?
Yes.
Are you on point? You know what I'm saying?
Are you ready to be a science fiction writer?
Yes. Are you ready? And if not, here's some things to do to get you ready.
Yep. And so, yeah, you definitely were pointing me in that direction and helping me understand through Ifa and through divination how to be a science fiction author, how to steal, well, not steal, but how to gather the treasure under the sea.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, baby. You and that mama crab under the waters, you went down there. I remember a piece that you wrote about Tiamat.
Oh, yes. That one's called Down in the Flood. Yeah, that story's been reprinted twice now. So 3 publications of that one. And you were the one that helped me do the research that I needed to do to write that story. Yeah. You know, every day that I write, and I'm writing a lot these days, I do prayers, I do offerings, I light candles in honor of my ancestors who helped me to write, and in honor of, well, let's see, who do I invoke for? I invoke for Eshu. Because Eshu is a divinity in our tradition who makes the impossible not just possible, not just probable, but true.
Yes. Yeah, like a dream, like a joke, Elegba laughs things into existence. Yes. Yes,
and the connection between different worlds, different planes of existence.
I love it.
Yeah, that's his. Also, now I understand that there is a connection between the word, the actual use of words and language, and Eshu Elegba.
Absolutely. Yeah, Elegba he has three functions, okay? Most times people will say, oh, he's a trickster, and they make you think that he's just a clown. Nothing could be further from the truth. Elegba is first and foremost a magician, okay, in that he spins the wheel of fortune so that earth, air, fire, water, and spirit can come together in different combinations. Okay. Alegba changes our perception of things, okay, and will move you from a place of stasis to a place of action. So, in terms of the magician, one of my favorite examples is Reese's peanut butter cup. You know that candy, right?
Yeah.
You know, there used to be a commercial where Mr. Reese was walking through the general store and he had a sack of flour. And when he went by the counter, the sack of flour hit a block of chocolate and it fell in the peanut butter barrel, right? And he picked it up, tasted it, and said, mmm. And Reese's peanut butter cup was born. Now, some people would say that Mr. Reese had an accident, okay? I say that Elegba was sitting on the edge of the flour sack and spun the energy so that Reese's peanut butter cup could be born. So sometimes people say he's the deity of accident, but he's really the deity of rearranging things. Elegba is a linguist. We open all rituals, open and close all rituals with Elegba so that he can translate language. So if I open Elegba and I want to go talk to Yemaya, Elegba translates my human language into water talk so that she can understand me, and then he brings the message back from water talk to human language. Probably my best example of that has to do with a time when me and another priestess went down to the ocean to make offerings to Yemaya. We brought the same offering. We stood in the same place. We sang the same song, okay? We stood there for a while, and after a while, a wave came in, and we both looked down, and there was the sole of a shoe laying in front of us. And as we both looked at it, I said, and she said, ooh. You see? Now, without saying anything else, we are both looking at the same thing. But perception was interesting. I said to her, when I saw the sole of that shoe, I understood that Elegba was saying, Yemaya will wash our feet. She will wash the path in front of us. And that woman looked at me and she said, I wondered, where's the body? Okay. Whoa.
Okay.
Whoa. Okay. Two different perceptions of what's going on. And then the third most important function of Elegba is what I call the enforcer, where he kicks us out of the crossroads of indecision. Our ability to choose, the choices that we make have a great impact on what happens on the road that we take. So, sometimes you have a situation where you look over here and you say, I have 6 in one hand and half a dozen in the other. If I do this, and that could go wrong. And if I do this, and that could go wrong. Should I get a job or should I go to school? Oh, I wasted ketchup on my dress. I guess I'll get a job. Something happens that is totally unrelated to the question, and it moves you from a stuck place to making a decision. There is not irrational, there is an a-rational energy that moves you beyond the stuck place of trying to reason everything out. So, Legba is my best boyfriend, actually. I love me some Legba.
Yeah. Well, I think all writers do.
Yeah, you have to.
That's one thing you left out of your sort of summary of, although you did mention storytelling.
Oh, yeah. Now, the thing about storytelling, it's important to say that both the Dilogun with cowrie shells and Ifa with the palm nuts and the chain contain Odu. And Odu is a very, very special kind of story. There are 256 stories or Odus, and each one of them may have anywhere from 3 to 8 to 32 verses, depending upon what the Odu is. But when one goes for Ifa divination and an Odu is drawn, there is a proverb called an Apataki that tells you something. There is a story, a myth or a folk tale. And when you look at that story, you see the predictions of what could happen, what may be already happening. And then it also contains what's called a bo, which is the prescriptions for what you can do to get back on your path or to balance the energy or to manifest the best of the story. The material here is rich.
Yes, it is.
Oh my goodness. It is rich.
Yeah, because there are people, oh gosh, who am I thinking of? Joseph Campbell, who said there was like one story. One. Yeah, and then there are people who say there's 3, and then there are people who say there's 7. We're talking about 256 with various permutations.
That's right, 256 with various permutations. And Baba Wande Abimbala, who is one of the authorities on Ifa, in his book, Ifa, I got so many of them, but in one of his books on Ifa, he explains the structure of the stories that comes with divination. So almost always contained in it is the name of the person who came for divination. Okay, sometimes that person's name represents an aspect in nature. Okay, so Whirling Wind was the one who came to consult Ifa on the day that such and such a thing happened. Okay, and it will name the diviner. Okay, Be Still was the name of the diviner who was consulted by Whirling Wind on the day that she was upset. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And then the story is told about how Whirling Wind wanted to tear everything up. She was going to uproot the trees, she was going to turn over the huts. She was going to do all of these things because she was upset, And the Babalawo said, and you can see that we're talking about a storm there.
Oh, yes, I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, we're talking about a hurricane. We're talking about something that's going to come tear everything up. And then the Babalawo says, well, you know, in order to prevent this disaster, ebo must be made, okay? The people in the town must cook eggplant and set it in the yard. And along with that, they must put pinwheels in the four directions of the house and sing to the wind. So you see that an offering is being made. You see that the pinwheels are out there to redirect the wind as it blows, right? To help change the course of the wind. And the people are rejoicing because they have avoided a serious situation. And so there's always the story, there's the prediction, and then there is the remedy. And the characters are so rich that, you know, when Jung talked about archetypes.
Oh, yes, I was gonna mention that word, archetypes.
Archetypes, you know, I'm fond of saying to people that indigenous people were working with archetypes before Jung's mama got pregnant. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Long before. I think the other thing that's important to say about storytelling out of Ifa is that it is an activating force, and it is a dynamic force. So by speaking the words in the story, you can actually release a vibration in the room that has an effect in the present, okay? So my example there is years ago, I was invited to do a storytelling at a meeting for the Oakland City Council. And I told the story of the legend of Obakoso, where a power-hungry king ended up hanging himself, right? And after I told the story, I went and sat in the back, and this man got up and he said, well, you know, the sister's story was very nice, but I want to take the moment right now to tell everybody that I talked to the mayor, you know, at 11 before it all went down, Now, I never knew what they were talking about, but different people got up and talked about when they talked to the mayor about the thing that came down. I never knew what it was that had happened, but I knew it was controversial. I knew that it was political, and I knew that I had let that energy loose in the room by telling that story. And so I quietly slipped out the back door because somebody was going to hang themselves with what they were saying or what they were confessing to. And I did not want to be on the scene for that. The other thing that is very, very important is, you know, there are a lot of people who talk about Ifa scripture, but I prefer to use the word orature because scripture, a word, something is written and it sort of is just right there on the page. You know, from now on, that's it.
Right.
That's all that can ever be said or done. And Ifa is not like that.
Yeah, with Ifa, each telling, each invocation of it changes what it says.
That's right.
Because it takes on the characteristics of what is going on when you invoke it.
Exactly. See, And what is beautiful about it, and I tell my students this, is that you come for a divination, right? You receive an Odu, you receive a prescription, a prediction, and a prescription. You do the ritual, you come back and tell me what happened. And then the next time that Odu shows up, you can become a verse in the story.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, it's alive. It's
yes, and that quality of being alive, that vitalness, that's what I strive for in my work.
Mm-hmm. And
must be because I saw it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ifa has an expanding effect on our consciousness, because you come to understand on a visceral level the intricacies of the universal manifested. You know what I'm saying? It's not abstract and just intellectual. It is in your skin and in your home and in your life. And all of this tumbles out into the writing.
I sure hope so.
It does.
You see that in my writing?
Yeah. Girl, you're possessed.
Yeah.
You're possessed by the spirit of what we call, in some African cultures, the person is called the griot. But I tend to think of the praise singer,
Mm-hmm.
Where the story is repeated, it is clarified, it is restated, reconnected. Like right now, I don't know if you ever saw it. I'm working on a series of Africana tales, and one of them is what I call Olokun's Challenge, And Olokun is the energy at the bottom of the ocean, right?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Olokun is the great mystery, and the whole mystery of why does a tsunami happen? Because the old man in the bottom of the sea is pissed off. What is he pissed off about? Okay. And I go all inside of the argument that exists between Olokun, who is the sea rising, and Obatala, Lord of the clouds.
Okay, yes, I'm with you on that. So so Olokun, very personal archetype, shall we say, for me. Here's what I get. There is so much pressure underneath the sea. At that level, the power and the pressure are such that whoever is experiencing it does not stay in this realm.
Right.
They do not. They go to some alternate reality. Okay, that's all that's going on there.
Yeah.
You are no longer where you thought you were.
No, deep. I say all the time, children of Olokun especially dip down into the collective unconscious. That which is so deep and so hidden, and they bring it to the surface, and sometimes other people can't see it. We have, around the world, we have all kinds of amazing mythology about what's going on down there under the water. I have to admit that one of the movies, well, there's a couple of things that I've watched over and over and over, but Aquaman, I love me some Aquaman because there's a whole citizenry down there, you know,
Mhm.
there's amazing, amazing characters down there. And the pull between what's at the bottom of the ocean and what's on the surface, that shows up, that discussion shows up everywhere. But it's a rich area for story. And the primordial forest is a very, very rich place for story. So, wow.
I know two other science fiction authors who are children of Olokun,
Mm-hmm.
and a third who says he's a son of Yemaya.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yemaya being more on the surface.
Mm-hmm. Well, the water, you know, I mean, most of the planet is water. Most of our body is water. And when I in the winter when I do my my dream workshop, we honor Yemaya and Olokun as the depths of consciousness, the depths of our emotion, and we look to them to find out what goes on when we're asleep. Where do we really go when we dream? You know, all kinds of things are possible, and a lot of creative inspiration comes from shutting down, you know, that monkey mind, the conscious mind that's always talking. You know, when you shut that down and allow yourself to hear or see what's beneath the water, there's amazing citizens there, amazing ideas and stories. Some people say that the surface of the earth has been swallowed several times, you know, so we get stories about Atlantis and Lemuria and hidden cities and somebody I knew, a student I had years ago, did a map where she reversed. She took the bottom of the ocean and brought it up to the top, you know, as if somebody drained the water off so we could see what was under. And it was mountains and valleys and and all kinds of structures, you know. The ocean is really calling people. I was just showing Kyoko last night. Do you know about the Crochet the Coral Reefs project?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yeah.
You know, so Olokun makes creative intelligence very, very well known. I mean, it's the waters are calling us. There's a group of African American deep sea divers. You know about them?
Yes, I actually have heard about them as well. Yeah, you know, because that's right up my if it was more up my alley, they'd have to be calling it Nisi Way.
That's right. Yeah, that's definitely, you know, it is amazing what the ocean is giving us, and I'm really happy that we have a generation of writers like you who are not afraid to push the boundaries of storytelling. You know, push the boundaries.
It doesn't feel like I'm pushing to me. It feels like I'm clinging to somebody else.
Tell me about that.
So Okay, so there is this whole thing of like you have to do a 3-act structure. You have certain conventions that you want to go along with in storytelling, but I keep getting drawn to these other traditions of storytelling and to these other possibilities in storytelling. There's a 4-act structure that comes out of East Asia that has nothing to do with one side winning over the other and everything to do with a change. Things look different. And things are resolved because what has happened has revealed a new way.
Yes, right.
And I like that.
Right. Well, if you're tuning into global consciousness, then you don't stick to the, Euro-American rule, and you do find out how other people see things. Like I think about was it Amos Tutuola who did the palm wine drinker?
Yes.
And that is African thinking, period, right? And then you look at going from there to Neil Gaiman, American Gods. Look at what he did with American Gods, And somebody told me at one time that they thought I was writing magical realism.
Oh, yeah. Because magic is real. Okay,
because
fine.
Magic is real. You know what I'm saying? But I think that the labels that we have had on storytelling in the past, so it gave some structure. It made it teachable. Maybe, we needed that kind of order at the time, but these are times of great transformation.
Yes.
And these are times of global relationships. And I think that we are looking, not at a plate with some vegetables here, some rice there, a piece of flesh here, and a piece of fruit there. But we're more looking at a gumbo, where various elements will fall in line.
Sure. So, so who do you see besides me in this gumbo? Who else? And, I see myself there because not only do I write about particular aspects or events that are clearly related to Ifa. I'll have an Ifa priest as a character, that kind of thing. But I also emulate certain elements of these religions in the settings, in the events, in the characters, even if they're not right out and out,
Right. Yeah, well, there's a lot of young writers who are doing stuff like Nalo Hopkinson. She's teeter-totters on the edge of playing with Eshu, right? What's the sister's name who did Children of Blood and Bones?
Tomi
Adeyemi.
Yes.
She did something like that. What is this child's name? Kofor.
Oh, Nadia Korfor.
Yeah. The River Where Blood is Born. And
okay, that's Sandra Opaku.
I know. So keeping folks' names together is difficult. And partially because if you ask me immediately, I think about some of my own students who I have subjected to certain things. Like, I think that you were one of the people who took the Ajala exercise.
Oh, yeah. Yes, the
Yeah.
Huts of Ajala. Yeah, that
Yes.
story I wrote about the whole experience of being born and getting another head.
And getting another head. And actually, somewhere in my storage, I have about 35 Ajala stories that are wonderful. I don't know if they'll ever be published because I don't know how to get in touch with those students to get their permission. But one of the things that I love to do is, take something from Ifa and make it an assignment to see what it draws out of people. What it draws out of people. And yeah.
So that would be like one way to have a writer, to give them help, is to give them an assignment, sort of a prompt to draw out that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Any other suggestions?
Well, it's like a while back, one of the online groups, when COVID first hit, I was contacted by the Shift Network, who I do eco mythology with them and stuff like that. And they said that there was going to be a panel of people discussing COVID, right? And I knew that everybody was going to talk about, wearing your mask, social distancing, etc. And so instead, I decided to write a myth about the pandemic, and it's called Earth's Children, and the primary character in it is I recount the behavior of human beings over millennia, as if they are, the humans are a bunch of children in a house, and their mother is trying to get them to behave. But I recount, the various atrocities in history, to the games, the war games that they played, the way that they started destroying the environment. But the thing is the mother in this story is Oya.
Oh. Oya is not the motherliest of mothers.
Baby, when she gets through with them, everybody happy to go to their room and shut their mouth. Everybody happy to wash their hands and so on. And so I got a request the other day from this group saying, well, we would like for you to write what happened after the children became obedient and did what Oya told them to do. See, that's the story that people are having problems with right now. Every time I hear somebody say, oh, when COVID is over, we can get back to normal.
Oh, no.
No, that ain't happening.
No,
not happening.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear you say that as well.
That's not happening, and I have to tell people, if we learn, if we pay attention to the shift that we are being directed to make, there's so much to write about what's happening right now. The thing to be careful with is that the tendency to go shadow pessimistic is strong because people are afraid of walking through the mystery, afraid of the unknown. So while I'm reveling in the fact that, you know, the dolphins are having a good time, I'm told that, you know, lions are laying on the freeway in South Africa, you know, nature is showing us how she will thrive when we pull back, right? But there are people writing things where the animals are now pissed off with us and they're going to take over. It's difficult for people to right now to imagine the adjustment that's made in harmony. Okay, it's difficult for some folks to look at that. I feel like COVID, the George Floyd murder, and the ecological degradation and disaster is trying to tell us not to go, ugh, but oh.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And that's probably why I'm less attracted to writing dystopian fiction, because of the influence of you and of Ifa, because those stories, you know, the stories in the Odu, they have ways to work.
That's right. Always.
They have ways to work.
Always. There is always something that you can do to bring about the balance. And once in a while, you'll run into an Odu where it says so-and-so was told to make their bowl and they didn't do it.
Yes.
And, you know, one of the things that I'm real clear about is I say to Elegba, see me and hear me. I make that bull, okay? I want the shit straight. I want to balance it. I'm the one who wants to clean it, you know. I'm willing to do the work. And that takes it out of, you know, the ooh wee spookies where we're just gonna chant a few words and, you know, everything's gonna change. No, we are about changing the energy, changing the story by changing the way we interact with the patterns of energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And we get that. I will be happy when the stories that we have become as much a part of the culture as some of the biblical tales and some of the things from the you know, the Odyssey and the Iliad. Some of our material is moving into the mainstream. Did you ever see the piece that Forrest Whitaker did called Strapped?
I did not see that. Is that related to Ifa?
Yeah. That's it. What he did there was took the legend of Obako So and put it in an urban setting. With Bokeem Woodbine playing the Shango character. But he didn't call him Shango. You have to know the Odu to see it happening in the story. I'm wanting to write, I'm in the process of writing things where our characters are clearly laid out in classical fashion. One of the problems that we've had is kind of a literary disrespect. So you can find stories, especially for a while, there was a couple of children's books where, Elegba was this tricky little dude who couldn't be trusted, or he was like a slick somebody on the street corner, That is probably one of the least powerful aspects of Elegba, interpreting the music of the universe, the language of the spheres, moving things from the invisible realm to the visible realm, impacting decisions that have far-reaching consequences. We want to look and draw upon the richness that is in every tale.
I agree. I think we got to stop talking about this, though.
We running out of time?
We sure are. And I just want to say thank you so much for helping me to get the message across that there is a deep spiritual dimension to what I'm trying to do and what I see others trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're working on it. The thing that people should know, and I've been saying this to everybody, is if you look at the lies that are presently in the news, for example, and if you wonder, is what we know as history, several centuries of lies? The only way for the truth to be known is for everybody to tell their story, everybody to write. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, you got to tell your own story because somebody else will tell it for you and get it wrong.
So I'm really encouraging people to do that. And now the series of rituals, especially because we're online, the series of rituals that I do always include a period where for 10 minutes we do breakout rooms and there's a writing prompt. Oh yeah. Yeah, you have to write something about the subject, like we did the fire out of control last time. The time before that, we did cultivating kinship across diverse lines. And before that, the impact of COVID and violence on people of color. And, you got to write what's in your heart, write what's happening in your life, and move beyond the boundaries of what, when I was in college, my advanced comp professor, Dr. Clinky, what's his name? And, Dr. Clinky was my nemesis for years. Let me tell you something. This man was so tight that when you wrote an essay for him, you had to write a supplemental paper explaining the punctuation in the essay. So you had to say page 1, paragraph 1, line 1 is punctuated this way because. Right?
That's ridiculous.
It was absurd. And it used to be that when I got ready to write something, I would see a little image of him jump up on my typewriter going, you can't do da-da-da. So one day I got tired of him and I made a vision where I took a knife and stuck it in his heart, twisted it and pulled it out and threw it in the garbage, and he never showed up on my typewriter again.
I don't know if that's where we want to end this.
I know. No, but I do want to encourage people to break free from dealing just in rational training and to go into your spirit, and allow yourself to be inspired by the indigenous wisdom, the ancient knowledge, and your own dreams.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Remember that big crab, girl. It's amazing. I am so proud of you, Nisi. So proud.
Balm to hear that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. All right. I'll see you around.
Oh, the name of my novel that I'm working on now is called Kinning.
Kinning.
Kinning, about making those connections across boundaries.
Right on. Right on. Okay. Yeah, we need it. We definitely need it. One of the things I belong to the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which was started by Edgar Mitchell, one of the astronauts who walked on the moon. And he said there was a situation where he got a chance to see the Earth from a different perspective. And he said, the lines that divide us are in our minds, not on the Earth. Not on the Earth. It is one unified ball.
Thank you.
Okay, baby.
I love you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Continue to be creative.
You too.
All righty. Bye-bye.
I must admit that I don't really want to necessarily say too much because it was such a wonderful moment. You can actually feel the love. And even just now at the end, when the compliment was given, there was no doubt that it's true. Doesn't matter how much she loves you. It's a moment. It's truly
she
a
likes
moment.
you too.
Actually, I like her. Is she taken?
There might be a line.
Well, I mean, she seems like she's 34 or something. I can work with that.
Either a line you don't want to cross or a line of people waiting.
I believe the line of people waiting. Yeah.
Both could be true at the same time.
So much has been said. I'll pick on one thing because I truly want to know. There was a word that I never heard before. There were a few of these, by the way. But orature, I believe it was, not scripture, meaning...
Oh, orature.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that the right word?
Yeah, I think you would say orature.
Yes. So, and the statement was something, semantically, something along the lines of, scripture, once it's written, it's written. That's it. And as far as, maybe I zoned out, but I didn't hear too much about what happens to orature. Does it change? Does it shift? Is it about not shifting, but the telling changes because of where you are in time? It just blew my mind as a concept. And I was wondering about that as I was listening to that.
Well, this was the first time that I heard it as well in conversation with her, but I understand it as a living word, not a word that is fixed in time, but a word that changes as our understanding changes and changes with retellings.
So growing up in a Jewish country, there is an oral tradition and then there is scripture. And what's interesting for me is how the oral tradition is it started. I'm not an historian expert on this, so everything I say is probably wrong. But it will get me to my point. So don't, hold me to this. But scripture was not written down so much over the last couple thousand years. It was written down before, but at some point it was transferred by rote memory. People just spoke it. At some point they didn't even understand all the words. And oral tradition, there's a lot of stuff you do in Judaism that's not written anywhere, but it's all treated as scripture. So it's very different. And I keep wondering if looking at, I've recently looked a lot at the founding of the United States and the founding fathers. And people usually say, what would the founding fathers say? And I'm like, this is what was written. This is what here. And people argue back and forth to support their opinion. And I wonder if that was orature, how would that shift over time to deal with the media, to deal with mass communication, to deal with people who write like you, people who say guys like me because they're used to it? How would that shift? What about all the original stuff? Do we still remember it? It just blew my mind right now. And there was so much to unpack. I just picked on this to not talk for hours.
Yeah, it's interesting in a sense, like the oral tradition modernizes better than the written tradition, because especially in passing it down generations, people retell it in ways that make sense to them. You would never have thought to put it into terms because some of the nouns and verbs might not have even existed when the stories started, but you can tell it in ways that will be understood and kind of adapted to the listeners. It's really it's not clear if it ages better or better or worse, just very differently.
I think it's good to have both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they bring really different things.
Marianne actually writes in the chat, it sounds like a divination could change both the questionnaire and the person performing the divination.
This is my experience, and also that it changes the question and the answer.
So are we going to see a story around the live word and the diviner who changes the answer? Or something like that soon coming from you?
I think they're all like that. The story that I had in mind to read is about communication and about how it changes and who understands it best.
And that brings us as a great seg into our next segment, which is precisely that. Nisi is going to read us a wonderful story. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about it, and we can just let you go at it.
Well, the only thing I will say is that it is some piece of flash fiction that was posted on a website for Arizona State University. It was commissioned as a project for the Us in Flux project. And so I wrote it a couple of months ago. And as always, when I start reading, I open with a song. This is an excerpt of a song that I found relevant. We're sending out a major love, and this is our message to you. The planets are lining up, we're bringing brighter days. They're all in line waiting for you. Can't you see? You're just another part of me. This story is called Fourth and Most Important. The fourth of the 5 petals of the New Bedford rose, integration, is called by some its most important. Primacy of place goes to the first petal, thought, of course. But linear primacy is deemed by practitioners of the 5 petals to be overrated. From 1,000 flowers of thought, schisms within the New Bedford rose. Willis loved to fly, zooming on his sister's couch, his phone tilted against a pillow so his shoulders stayed relaxed. He dived up through the thinning atmosphere. On target? Yes. The aluminum framing the entrance to his drone's dock sparkled in the bright sun. The gossamer lines suspending the radio repeater and dock gondola from McPickle's weather balloon shimmered in and out of visibility against the dark blue sky. They vanished as the drone swooped inside the dock and dropped into its cradle. Switching apps, Willis settled down to operating the dock's Waldos. This was nowhere near as fun as flying, but it must be done. McPickle maintained this balloon and several neighboring ones at their own expense, and in return for access, Willis and his cohort loaded and unloaded the packages Pickle and their cohort swapped back and forth, and covertly shipped a few other things. Willis did wish he could see in the dock's darkness. The Waldo's grips were Sensitech. They handled the drone's cargo expertly, seizing and releasing it with precision promised to plus or minus 3 millimeters and or 1 gram. But the Waldos couldn't tell him what rich people like Pickle were secretly sending each other. Maybe the same sort of stuff as he was, but it would be nice to know. His crew's more or less legal additions to the drone's load came out last. Inca-derived, necklace-like quipus, threads knotted into messages passed between care collectives. The Antitrust Authority frowned on any direct, unlicensed communication between individuals or groups. Also, they frowned on social media posts, even though the computer so-called virus that social media providers had supposedly disseminated through social media had been proven a hoax. The Antitrust Authority wanted to clamp down on them, too. The pickup bay of the dock held a neatly coiled incoming quipu, so he stowed that away first, then extended a Waldo arm hopefully toward the transit bay. Empty. Blood clot. He retracted the arm. Nothing to bring to another balloon. No excuse not to come back to Earth. It's always been kind of a dirty word. True, Jung and other psychologists praised integration as a healthy goal, and civil rights activists pushed for racial integration in the late 1950s and 60s. But in the 70s, Black Power militants pushed back, made it synonymous with selling out. In the case of the New Bedford Rose, while there's a whole petal named for integration, it's still a problematic area. Integration of what? From what? Into what? How? That's from Dissecting the Five Petals of Thought. The
Thank you for
transmitter.
that.
I'm still going.
I'm so sorry.
The transmitter was in the attic of his sister Flora's garage, and the driveway doubled as a landing pad. Willis ventured out to retrieve the drone well before she would have to leave for her shift at the plant. He carried the drone to his workbench in the basement. He'd left one in her way once, and Flora never let him forget that. That almost made me late, she muttered at him every time she passed the couch on the way to the shower. The quipu was mostly gossip, some clueful guesses about McPickle's payloads. Could be stock tips, that sort of thing. The business of business is business, as a famous economist supposedly said, though Willis was pretty sure that there had to be more to it than that. To his left, the steps down from the kitchen creaked under Flora's healthy weight. Up early? He asked her, as her slippers scuffed across the concrete. What do you care? A legit question. She'd been instrumental in getting it going, but since the freeze on using her kinetic charging mods, Flora's contribution to the New Bedford Rose was mainly limited to Willis's couch and board. That and his access to her neglected copy of Sky's million-selling 5 Petals of Thought, and a few other more obscure texts. Thought maybe you had time to help me set up a cipher for our next message exchange. Ha! But his sister leaned over the bench like she was interested. Stick to your system you got. Less confusing. The system she'd come up with. Flora was hella smart, too smart to be working in a slaughterhouse, but it paid better than teaching. He twisted the dangling cords of the quipu into a single strand and tied it around his head over his bandana. Flora watched him closely. So what's bothering you? She asked. Your ex giving you grief for wanting custody of the therapy ferret? She went ahead and had the ferret decented. Willis said nothing. Marnie was gone for good. He wasn't going to encourage his sister to talk about her. Flora shook her head. Whatever's got you worried, it's been eating at you for a while. Willis slapped his hands on the bench's smooth wood. You want to know what's bugging me? Trying to figure out why all these rich people setting up that balloon net. They set it up. What are they getting out of it? Flora tilted her head back and smiled at the basement's dusty rafters. Ha! Well, that's a problem so simple it's got 2 solutions. All you have to do is pick one. What's my choices? You could steal a loaded drone, fly it down here, and take a peek inside. Less than 0 chance of that. Too easy to be found out. It wasn't just the gossip he'd miss if his collective got kicked off BalloonNet. Job postings, client ratings, dinosaur fat, the distribution matrix replacing free cycle. Those were crucial benefits. Second choice is you woman up and demand they tell you. In the US, it's $478,000. Singapore, $696,000. That's all you need to qualify. What's the distinction between being in the top 1% versus the top 5%? Makes a difference to them, but not much to us. That's from A Young Socialist's Guide to Understanding Inequality. Willis picked his most efficient drone for the flight. No guarantee Mixed Pickle would recharge it for its return trip home. He added his modifications confidently. He knew Pickle lived within the transmitter's reach because he'd met them on a regional nature excursion last fall when the 2 of them were assigned the same canoe. Pickle had steered. Willis had spent as much time looking back at them as he did watching the descent of the scarlet maple leaves that matched their skin. Not a natural beauty, not with all their implants and grafts, but they were awfully easy on the eyes, which was a big part of being rich, as far as Willis could see, never having to be ugly or stick out in any way, unless you wanted to. So why ally yourself with outcasts like him? Why follow the 5 Petals? What did he and his crew and all the New Bedford Rose's other over-connected adherents have that rich people didn't, that they couldn't buy? Because Pickle and their kind could have hired people to circulate the drones. Volunteers like Willis weren't strictly necessary. So why use them? He finished installing the mic and auditory sensors and went up to the couch to open the control app and enter Pickle's physical address. Along the obsolete highway, cutting across the overgrown high school playing field, above the precariat soy farmers with their bandanas tied over their faces for practical reasons, not just as a sign of solidarity. The house was old. Cobbled paths converged on its sunken patio. Willis circled twice. Between the paths lay green gardens and trapezoids of bare brown earth, still damp from the morning dew. He settled onto the patio and enabled the audio packet. The fresh twang of a screen door spring came with a chaser of bare feet rushing down back steps. A human hand darted through his visuals and turned him so he saw Pickle's face. Their lips parted and their eyes narrowed. Are you antitrust authority? No, it's Willis. The eyes squinted to suspicious slits. Right. You never come here. That's your rule. So what's the matter? I was wondering. He'd made a bet with Flora he would do this. If he lost his nerve at the last minute, he had to ask Marnie for a pity fuck. I was wondering what you ship. Why you do all this. Why I do all what? Balloon net? The drone routes? Yeah. You sure you're not Check my load. A click and his belly opened to show her the kipu he carried. Pickle read it by touch. All right. The loads are nothing. Sourdough starter, herbal remedies. The messages are free speech. As for what I want, I'm old. They didn't look it. This might be my last chance. My last chance to do what we used to call eat the rich. On Flora's couch, Willis clenched his buttocks, squeezed his phone in his fists. Disconnect always threw him out. He wrestled with the dilemma, tried to grab it by the horns. But you're the rich. It probably seems that way to you. To me, well, it's normal to own a big house, keep horses, that kind of thing. So many people have so much more than me, though. They're the rich ones. They've got 1,200 times my income. They're the ones we have to stop. Willis felt his perspective shift. Pickle had picked him up. The sky wheeled, and the house's spruce blue walls loomed suddenly nearer. Long as you're here, can you come inside? They asked. I think I figured out a way we could expand Balloon Net, make it a better alternative for us than what the antitrust authority sanctions. We, us. Okay, what way? There'll be a lot more routes, a lot more balloons. There'll be the fashion, a status symbol, a lot more flying between them. Flying is my favorite part. That's the end. That's the end.
Thank you, Nisi. I love the line, to do what we used to call eat the rich. I was clapping that line.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good. Someone put the link in the chat for the story. Yeah, it's available online.
That's Ian, our wonderful, wonderful head of content.
Thank you, Ian. I'll only add that I got my first piece of fan art out of that story.
Really? What was it?
Someone made a kipu.
Oh.
Yeah, they made a kipu and sent it to me. Aw.
Oh, that's so nice. So I know that we're going to hear some of your music coming up here. Can you tell us about the connection for you between stories and song and singing?
So songs are stories, the good ones. I like them. And I had my own band, and I had to make a choice what kind of stories I wanted to do. So I gave up on the songs, I gave up on the band a few decades ago, but they're still dear to me. There's still a deep connection, and I honor that by singing when I read.
When you read, when you're reading a story written by someone else, do you sing it? Is that
No. Just when I do a public reading, I will sing something, a song I wrote, or a folk song, or something that's connected with the matter.
I see. I'm curious. I also listen to songs very much as stories, and so I prefer songs with words, or even with folk or folk style with more overt stories. Do you feel that way even about songs that are don't have lyrics as much or at all?
No, I definitely enjoy those though, and I don't see them so much as stories, but when I'm writing my stories, I almost always have some sort of instrumental music in the background. I've created actual whole channels to help me write different stories.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, different playlists, different Pandora stations, that kind of thing.
Right.
We're going to have quite a bit coming up with your music, of course, but we're going to start with a cappella. But before we do, and maybe you will choose to answer that a little bit later, I wanted to specifically ask you about Steely Dan.
Yes, thank you. Steely Dan. Steely Dan. Okay, first of all, Steely Dan is a band, not a person. Second of all, they are my jam. They are, they do so much with wonderful lyrics, sort of insightful and clever arrangements of words, and deep, powerful chords that evoke images and emotions. And I think that just speaking as myself, I can only speak as myself, but I know that there is a connection between many Black people and Steely Dan. Steely Dan is white musicians for the most part, but they're drawing on traditional Black music and making it accessible and adding their own stuff to it. And so you'll have like reactions to it, reaction videos on YouTube to a bunch of Steely Dan, because people know that this is the sincere, the real stuff. It's not the kind of thing where someone is like saying, I will possess this, I will appropriate this music. It's people, Steely Dan musicians and the ones that they work with saying, this is part of me and I am part of it.
It's interesting that you look at Steely Dan specifically as an inspiration. How do you see that inspiration working into your own work?
I actually have written several short stories based on Steely Dan songs. There's one called The Best Friend We Never Had, with a lot of Steely Dan Easter eggs in it. The lead character's name is Josie. There's My Old School. There's oleanders growing around in the space. It's a space module where people are living. So yeah, it's definitely there.
So I will be brave and postpone moving to the music for another second, because I wonder, you mentioned two specific artists/bands. You mentioned Steely Dan.
Yes.
And you also mentioned X-Ray Specs.
Oh yeah, X-Ray Specs. I modeled a bunch of my music career after X-Ray Specs. They were a punk band. I remember they had Jack Airport on bass. I think that was a made-up name, but I was my band's lead singer, and I modeled myself after polystyrene, a African-descended Black woman with like a mouth full of hardware, just braces all over, a teen and a fearless singer. And my band even covered a couple of X-Ray Specs songs, but yeah, a big inspiration. Yep.
So from that, we can start perhaps focusing more to your own career as in a band, closing in on the time when we'll talk about your storied past, as we call it.
Oh dear. Okay.
Oh dear. So you wanted to start with a cappella songs, correct? Specifically, you mentioned The Little Breeze Springs Up and All the Little Birds.
Sure. Yeah. Those are the things that, these are more recent things. Although A Little Breeze Springs Up is, it's a very old composition, but this recording of it is new. And All the Little Birds is, well, it just happened.
Okay, so let's start with the first one and listen in, and we'll come back again.
Everybody gets up each morning inside their own skin. Everybody has to work some, trying to keep some life within. Yeah. Everybody has to lay down, wait their turn to get stepped upon, but everybody's got a big chance, and it's just before the dawn. Ain't no use crying about it, you better save your salt. Ain't no use to curse and ramble, 'cause no one's really at fault. Ain't no use to say it ain't no use, 'cause using doesn't mean nothing. No, ain't no use using nothing. Just lay your head back and sing. Everybody gets up each morning inside their own skin. Everybody has to work some, trying to keep some life within. Yeah, everybody's got to lay down, wait their turn to get stepped upon, but everybody's got a big chance, and it's just before the dawn.
I wonder, when we spoke earlier about your music, it seemed like every little song and every little or huge piece that you wrote, there's some story behind it. There's some idea behind it. And I wonder how. I'll just shut up.
Seriously, I don't know about that one. I mean, I wrote it and I sang it.
How dare you? How
there.
dare you not know about that one?
I'm sorry. It's so old. I think I must have been. I must have written that about 50 years ago. Seriously. And the chords and everything, that would be great to have those sometime when I hear it. But nope, it's just one of those things that happened while I was hanging out in high school, I guess.
I try to forget high school personally, but whatever works for you. Do you ever just burst into song?
Not so much anymore. There was a period in my life when actually I heard music the entire time. I just, who knows what that was about.
Who knows indeed. The Storied Past is coming up soon. So we have another one. And does All the Little Birds have a story behind it?
It's about the divine. We'll just say that the person I'm addressing in it is the goddess.
I guess we'll just listen in and try to tell for ourselves.
This is a song I wrote
more or less by accident, when I was fooling around with the mic on my old phone. All the little birds are singing your song all day long. I hear notes I know, so clear, high and low. If the world's a bell, it's ringing. If the world's a lie, it's true. All the little birds are singing all the songs that they learned from you.
I often get the sense that you're open to talking about things which other people aren't. In a way, from my perspective, you seem to embrace talking about everything and being accepting of things. And in today's world, where it seems that we often try to limit our speech, perhaps out of respect, this is my take on it, I find that to be very interesting. And I was wondering if there is something behind that, if there is religion behind that, if there is a philosophy behind that, or if you're just like that, if I'm reading it correctly.
I think you are reading it correctly, and I think the only philosophy that could be behind it is that I was comparing myself to someone that I know, and I explained the difference between us as she is always very conscious of who is above her and who is below her in status, whereas I live in a world where everyone is my equal. She has no equals and I have nothing but equals. So of course I'm trying to talk about stuff that is normally hidden, because you're just another part of me. You're as Michael Jackson says, we're kin.
Looking at the discussion earlier, when I apologized to you in advance, and not to take away from any apologies I will do, although so far I've been okay, that I sometimes mix up pronouns and I feel bad about it. And you said, it's not a big deal, just say you're sorry. And I find it interesting specifically that you're a large advocate in this world of the other, and how to write the other, and how to address the whole topic. But at the same time, it seems like, maybe without saying too much, I'm sorry if I haven't seen you speak publicly on this, and you have, that openness and discourse and conversation and maintaining contact, as opposed to assuming something bad in this world, is something that you do. And it's so hard considering the world around us. And I was wondering if you do it consciously.
I don't know. I don't know. I suppose I must have made a decision.
Gotcha. I saw something and you didn't, and I know better than you about you. Boom. No?
I must have made a decision at some point, but nah, it's habit now.
I'll push on that a little bit more because I'm using the opportunity, but then we'll just move past this topic if you're okay with that. Steely Dan, for example, specifically around the time that it came out, the band was out, wouldn't that be considered appropriation today?
I don't think so, because as I say, it's not about like copying. It's about creating something original in the same vein. I mean, it's not the sort of thing where, as much as I love the Beatles, there was they did a version of Twist and Shout, which is lick for lick, groan for groan, the same as the Isley Brothers. And all they were doing was copying the Isley Brothers. And I consider that appropriation. Whereas, yeah, the first time that that I heard Peg, I found it just, yes, this is funky, this is a groove, this is someone who does what needs to be done without stealing it from someone else.
I think so. So Karen can speak much better about this than me. My thoughts are also not as organized. I'll talk a little bit, and I hope she'll pick it up. We had Malka Older on the show, and Malka said a sentence that kind of stuck with us, and we often quote as we talk about the show. And that's a question Karen asked her about the difference between representation and appropriation.
Yeah, I had talked about wanting to represent like a lot of different characters in stories and in writing, but trying to find or that I often think about, like, where is the line between appropriating, in writing about characters who are literally, as the other to me. And I actually believe she may have, I don't remember if she called you out by name, but her first answer was, there are folks who've done really good work on this, such as writing the other. But the answer was, or at least the answer she offered, which I thought was quite wise, was to make sure that you are, there were two parts to it. One of them was to make sure that you are not telling the story of the person. So, to write an entire story that is sort of entirely about the struggle of being transgendered. I'm not transgendered. I've got loved ones who are, but still to write a first person story where that's the primary conflict and journey might feel wrong for me to write that, but to include characters is, it seems very,
it's kind of a story from, I think she said, a story from a group and a story of the group, and you can talk
the story of the group, and then the other was to make sure that there are characters.
Well, there is all that, and I know much more at this point about writing than I do about music. But I will also say about Steely Dan that I have been very, very pleased because the licks that are used in Peg, for instance, have been taken by hip hop artists and used by hip hop artists. So having that energy being taken and repurposed in that way was great. And then their reaction to it was not the sort of thing where they're like, gonna sue someone. They're like, oh, good, I'm glad you found that helpful. I'm glad you found that juicy. I'm glad you found that worth your time and attention, and I'm glad that you took me into your work. So I don't know.
I think there may be an element, as I'm just thinking through this question. I'd not heard this question before. We didn't discuss it, but I also think that jazz is not an art form that credit was not given to the creators of, which I think in many times when we talk about appropriation, there's an element of it was looked down upon, the actual art form done by the people who originated it is not really popular, but it's been cleaned up and sold in a mall somehow.
There's the power dynamic too, which is
right.
Still troubling in the case that we're talking about. It is still an element and a troubling element, but
right.
Yeah.
I think I want to not necessarily, we can talk about this for hours. You are literally the expert on this. I just wanted to say that, and I'm not sure how to say it truly. I find that it comes from, okay, I think I have it. It seems like dialogue and collaboration and openness is part of what you put out there, as opposed to you're open to people talking about these subjects or appropriating them. That's the feeling I kind of get from you, if that makes sense.
I'm sorry, I need to follow that distinction. Could you repeat it?
Karen, help me out.
It wasn't clear to me what you were saying either, I'm afraid.
Oh man, usually that means she didn't listen. Usually when I say something and it's really completely off, Karen will save me. But I'll try again.
It seemed nice, but I wasn't sure what it meant.
No, you didn't listen. I caught you. No, I'm kidding. I'm not. I'm kidding. No. Anyway, I'm saying that there is so much anger out there that it seems like, I'm not talking about Black Lives Matter right now. I'm talking about everything, not even politics. There's so much anger out there. And we are stuck within tribalism all the time, with grouping people into buckets. That it's so difficult to open discussion and communicate. And what I feel that when people do it is they make a decision to do it. Now I'm going to be open and try to communicate and try to see this person as a person. And I'll talk about this topic and try to keep an open mind. And what I sense from you is that is your sense of being when you communicate. You're just communicating constantly, almost like a book talking to another book when it's written. You're just constantly open when you bring up a new topic or a new line. For example, today, and not just being white, being Israeli, which is completely unrelated to what's going on right now, looking at Black Lives Matter, I'm saying that anger should be out there. It should be, we should respect that. We should do so much more, as much as we can, to support and to help and to prevent extra burden and all of that stuff. And then I look at you and you do all of that within a certain calm that just says, talk to me. Let's talk about this.
So I am also an old hippie. And there was a book.
Don't give away though yet, as you answer this, the storied past portion of this conversation, please, though.
There was a book that was very popular as I was coming into adulthood called Be Here Now by Baba Ram Das. And also known by the name he was born with, Richard Alpert. And one of his directives was speak to the highest self in anyone you meet. And that's what I do. And that's maybe my habit now.
What is the highest self?
The highest self in anyone is their divinity.
Okay, fair. We're going to move on now.
Actually, was this the book or Ramdas who said, like, who is the I that can't stand myself?
Probably. Sounds like
that's what I was like thinking of when I was earlier talking about the observer. The who is the me that observes myself. Was, I think, from the same I believe it was from this book, or at least from some teachings of Ramdas.
Yeah, sorry, but that's where I got it from.
At this stage, we want to start listening to more music. What's the difference between the music we just heard and the music we're about to hear?
Well, this what we're about to hear is like the full bore band. If we're going to do it in the order that I was suggesting, the first song will be from our demo.
Call It What We Will.
Yeah, Call It What You Will, yes. And that was supposed to be our anthem. It's like a hymn to polyamory as far as I'm concerned.
And afterwards, we'll talk about what you call an ode to polyamory.
Yes, okay.
So on that note, let's take it away.
I don't know what you call what I do. I don't have to know its name. I just do what I have to do. I just do more of the same. And I can't stop loving everybody. Can't stop loving everybody. Hey, you with your hands on the money reins, riding the world so hard. You gave your mother horrible pains. You hurt her right from the start. But she can't stop loving everybody. Can't stop loving everybody. I just wanna make her glad, glad, glad. So I can't stop loving everybody. Can't stop loving everybody. Can't stop loving everybody.
You spoke of an ode to polyamory, and I feel today when I speak to many poly people, it seems like the party line, if there is such a thing in poly, I don't think so, is I have enough love for many. And here it seems like an imperative. I can't stop. This is something I must do.
Well, it's an internal imperative. Yeah, it's like, but also it seems to me that it's like, if I stop, then I'm being untrue to myself, and that is the way that messing up the world goes, is by being untrue to yourself.
I think polyamory is interesting because it is both a lifestyle and relationship choice, and many people also view it as an orientation, or it's, you know, I would say a bit between the two, because it can be a property of both a person and a relationship. Or a structure. I've known people who've made different decisions at different times, but I think that the idea that this is an imperative that you would feel internally is very true, and not everyone listens to their own imperatives all the time, or can hear them clearly.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I was trying to
worksheet for that. Sorry.
I was trying to look up if I could find the lyrics to that online. Do you know if they're anywhere?
Oh no, they're not. No, I could probably type them out for you, but
I feel bad making you do the work.
It was that demo was Accidental Suitcase. That was see, our personnel changed so much that I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that was Jeff Estes on the lead guitar and Kathy Johnson on the keyboards, but we had a couple of different bass players, Tom Carpenter, Todd Perkins. We had 3 different drummers. I'm not sure where that falls in there. Sorry.
No, it's okay. What was the phrase around something that can't help making her sad?
Oh, I see the moon and she sees me. She smiles, but she's so sad. A tear slides down and falls on me. I just want to make her glad.
Oh, thank you.
I have been called arrogant for wanting to make the goddess glad.
I'm sure she appreciates it.
I'm gonna I want to move us through the music more as a sort of like you would treat an album, trying to see things one after the other and the evolution there, as you set it out for us. I'll try to talk less. That said, I do have to ask, and I will go to TMI zone. Do you see sex as something religious?
Of course. What? Doesn't everybody?
I would say religion is usually involved somehow around it. The minute you mention something related to gender or sex, everybody jumps up. But it seems like, well, you said you're a hippie, right? I guess you can stop there.
Yeah.
I think that's only a hippie view.
No, but I don't really have a thought beyond that. And as we can't really pick up on that, I think I'll just like to move on before I get myself into trouble.
I don't know. There's that Hosier song. If the heavens ever did speak, she's the last true mouthpiece about his lover, and like this has shown up in a lot of songs.
Yeah, yeah.
My church offers no absolutes. She tells me worship in the bedroom. Right.
Okay. Moving on from that, I would like to actually take a serious tone for a minute. The next song, which Nisi will talk about in a second, requires a trigger warning. Now, our personal belief that this is not written in extreme, but it is about children and it is about abuse. And therefore, we want to make sure that everybody here knows there is a clear trigger warning for what's going to happen over the next 4 or 5 minutes.
Right.
Nisi, please tell us more about this second song that we're going to hear today, Dr. Phil.
There is an English poem called "I Do Not." Well, it goes, "I do not love thee, Dr. Fell," and it's about creepy grown-ups from a child's point of view, and that's what this is too. Oh, and it's from a live a gig that we had.
Just to be clear, the song is about the point of view of the abuser, or the child, or
the child.
So okay. So again, this is why the trigger warning, and I really appreciate you dealing with everything and doing so within your art. But we can just listen to it now, I think.
Dedicated to the memory of Bill Cotton. I do not love thee, Dr. Fell, and why this is I cannot tell. But this I know full well, I do not love thee, Dr. Fell. Eyes closed, here we go sing on. Bend down, walking the cash on ground. Everybody treats me like a human being, reputation by the disease. It makes me shiver when I see you smile, but you look just like a crocodile. It's not right, I don't know how come, but I know I won't kiss a bag of gum. Get out of here! Get out of here! I do not love these doctors now, and why this is I cannot tell, but this I know full well, I do not love these doctors now. Eyes closed, here we go sing around. Bend down, what you can touch the ground. Everybody trusts you with they told you. One can be terrible fool. Can't they feel the seaweed that is down my spine? I can't be helped, they do not why. It's not right, I don't know how come, but I know I won't without bag of gum. Get out of here! Get out of here! I do not love thee, Dr. Fell, and why this is I cannot tell, but this I know full well, I do not love thee, Dr. Fell.
Let me join in that. So, do you want to tell us something about this first?
I just, listening back to it now, I'm like, wow, we were so serious.
Why so serious?
Because it was a song about being powerless and angry. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I didn't know what else to say about that.
Maybe we don't need to say anything.
Yeah, no, it was pretty heavy metal though, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, let's just go on to the next one.
So this next one, I'm gonna dump at Karen's doorstep because she made a comment earlier when we talked about wonder. And as we're finally getting to your storied past, I figure let's pick it up a notch. Karen.
What did I say that you're trying to quote me on?
I always throw things at you, but essentially this next song is about drugs. And I believe that you made the relation of how can we talk about wonder without talking about drugs?
I was more of a personal thought than how could anyone, but the altered mind states have like a long tradition in a lot of connection to a lot of different forms of spirituality, and are related as well, I think, to the ideas of immediacy and of sort of thinking differently about the same situations and contexts that you're normally in, but kind of borrowing for a moment a different perspective, and being able to see things a little, and the people around you a little differently.
Very well put. Very well put. I will just say that yes, it's about. I think it's mostly about being high on marijuana and thinking about acid, which they're actually very different experiences, and that the circular breath I'm talking about is about. For me, it's about being in touch with everything and everyone, but it's also a musical term. It's a way of playing a woodwind without stopping. You breathe in as you breathe out. So that's the circular breath.
Right. I also played the clarinet. I was like, this sounds like a great word for this.
Yeah.
There is with acid and a couple other psychedelics, there's a phenomenon called ego death that is a little bit of a falling away of the sense of self. You'll hear people report back that they couldn't tell the difference between themselves and someone else, and experience this strong feeling of universality. And I've gone to and made art at Burning Man for several years, and when coming up to people with a shtick that's just a silly game, I've taught my little theater troupe like how to identify which people to go up to, and if you go up to the people who are drinking at a bar, sometimes they'll react badly to a skit, but the people who are standing around and just staring at lights are always friendly. Always a lot of love and joy for whatever art you come and bring them.
Well, I say let's bring this one.
Let's have some of that.
And let's listen.
I think of those of you who never see anything green. I think of those of you who never do anything blue. Just once before your death, why don't you take a circular breath? Colors melt into thin air. I'm so big and everywhere. I'm too small for you to see. Lose yourself inside me. I think of those who've never seen anything green. I think of those of you who never do anything blue. Just once before your death, why don't you take a circular breath? Skipping stones and skimming birds. You can't say things like that with words. I only know what is has been, and what the birds will rise again. I think of those of you who never do anything new. Just once before your death, why don't you take a Thursday around?
So one thing that I didn't know was that this was all recorded on a tape. And I don't know when you last listened to it, but our own tech person who is making all this happen, Alan Bond, went over to your place, picked it up, and a friend of his turned it into digital music. And I was wondering when, and thank you, Alan, for all of that work. I was wondering, when did you last listen to all of this music?
Well, I got to listen to the MP3 files when it was transferred, and so.
But before that.
Oh gosh, it's probably been at least 20 years.
And any thoughts, impressions?
Yes. What I'm struck with listening now is what a great job the keyboard player did. Kathy Johnson. No, I mean, she was like, right there with all of the different harmonies that she's singing with me, and the different parts that she comes up with to fit in. I mean, you've been seeing basically what I would give a band is one of these sheets with like, okay, here's the words and here's the chords and here's some suggestions for how to voice the chords, but nothing about like the melodic lines or the rhythm or anything like that. That's all Kathy. I think that on that particular one, no, the one before it, I think it was definitely a bass player named Todd Perkins, whom I'm now in connection with on Facebook. But some of the stuff we're not listening to, it's because I totally failed to give people any idea what rhythm to play. Thank you, Kathy.
So before we move over to listen to Pretty for You, I was wondering if you wanted to say something about National Brotherhood Week.
We did talk about that a little bit. That is the kind of thing that was going on in my childhood when I was in elementary school. We had something called National Brotherhood Week. And it was basically like, hey, everybody, it's cool to have Black friends. And I can still recall the songs that we were singing in class to sort of underscore how cool it was that, everybody was getting along. Now, this was going on at the same time that tanks were rolling down the street in Detroit. So I leave it to you to judge which.
I wouldn't even dream of judging.
Yeah.
Not to mention even understanding, but it does bring us to your students. You just did something together with them, and there is the whole idea of the 2-hour transport, and you promote your students, and there is a lot of work around that. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, well, that was just, I teach. That is one of the things I do as well as write. And I was teaching people about writing. And to me, part of writing is this thing that you do of bringing the writing to people via your readings. So I wanted them to have practice doing that. And these days you do it online. So we did the 2-hour transport, which is a series of readings. It's a program that's been ongoing for a few years now. And I think they did very well.
Do you often promote your students this way?
This was a particular class. I think the year before I did a summer reading that was in person because we were doing in-person readings then. and I had them read to each other. They were afraid of doing that. I think we writers, we're a very introverted bunch, statistically speaking, as a rule. So you don't get people, you know, eager to climb out on the stage and show off. So yeah, I encourage them to do it because it's helped me. It's a different way of getting your work before people than printing it, and it's crucial.
Do we need to know something about Pretty for You, or should we listen to it and find out for ourselves?
As I explained it to my niece, it's a song about someone who just wasn't that into me.
What?
Just wasn't that into me. That's all you need to know.
I find that, but that person is probably on your Facebook now.
Yes.
How do you feel about that? Tell us more, please.
No. This is where I stop talking.
Let's listen to the music then.
I was pretty for you. Why weren't you pretty for me? I was pretty for you. Why weren't you there to see? Carefully careless of the clothes I chose. I was conscious as a cat, crowding around, practicing poses. No, he wouldn't like that. I was pretty for you. Why weren't you pretty for me? I was pretty for you. Why weren't you there to see? Dreadfully dangerous to fall in love. We're both old enough to know. Tired blue eyes, soft and seductive, and so over I go. I was pretty for you. Why weren't you pretty for me? I was pretty for you. Why weren't you there to see? I put a record on the stereo. I sat staring at the door, wondering why, what could have happened, what you stayed away for. I was pretty for you. Why weren't you pretty for me? I was pretty for you. Why weren't you there to see? I was pretty for you.
I'll just say, how dare they? Well, this is the type of situation when you say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, they didn't want you," or "that bitch." I mean, which part of which situation is this right here?
Oh no, it's not even that fraught. You know, I had to do something, so I fell in love. Yeah.
That's how it happens. You just had to do something. You had free time, so you decided to fall in love.
Yeah. Time.
Makes sense, all in all.
Yeah. And I wanted to say that sliding bass, that was Todd Perkins. Yep.
Mm.
Yep. Good stuff.
Alrighty. Well, I would like to shift our conversation a little bit and acknowledge your tiara.
Oh,
It's a flower crown, I think.
it's actually jewels.
Jewels? Oh yeah, they're sparkling. That's right.
Yeah.
I remember there are two things that come to mind when I look at the tiara immediately. Now there are a lot more because of the reason I'll mention. One is when I still watched The Big Bang Theory before I started getting annoyed that it was making fun of geeks as opposed to with geeks. But that's my pet peeve. Let's ignore that. I forget the name of the character right now who was dating Sheldon. For some reason, I remember everybody else, Amy and all that. But she got a tiara. She said, I'm a pretty princess. And that was it. That's all she cared about at that moment. And right now, fandom has become much bigger on tiaras because Sarah Felix on Constellation 2020, the Facebook group, every Tuesday does something called Tiara Tuesday, where she does a giveaway of a tiara. And she has dozens of sponsors sponsoring these tiaras. Some of them she buys, some of them she makes on her own. She's doing workshops on how to make tiaras. I think she had 1,400 people sign up one of the weeks. Usually it's around 1,200 people. Fandom, I expect fandom to be much more about tiaras than it used to be.
Well, since we're mostly seeing each other from the clavicle up, yeah, there's that. I for years was doing parties at WisCon where people would make their own crowns. I call them crowns rather than tiaras. I would provide raw materials, wire and snips and little dangly things, baby shoes and houses and stuff to hang from your crown, and I would help people make their own crowns. I made one for Kim Stanley Robinson with like baseball mitt on it and stuff.
So you make tiaras?
Yeah.
Or
but
crowns?
This one was not. I didn't make this one. A woman named Sharon Reynolds made it for me. I bought the crystals, and they're Swarovskis. So
a baby shoes tiara.
Well, it would be appropriate for some people. Yes.
That's okay. I've seen tentacle tiaras and skull tiaras, and I'm game. I'm game.
Yeah.
I just wanted to appreciate that and what's going on in fandom right now, just because Sarah decided to do something on a Facebook group. And I would like to take us somewhere a little bit different and acknowledge how much you like steampunk.
Well, now I do, but only my steampunk.
What does that mean?
So I came into writing steampunk because I loathed it, because it was presenting this idea that colonialism was great, and the 19th century was full of adventurous people in corsets that supported imperialism, and I could not stand that. So I tried to write something that was more subverting what the colonialist powers and there actually is quite a bit of that. I'm not alone. Yeah, there's Jamie Go is and Jeanette Ng, they've put together sorry, I've messed up. It's not Jeanette Ng. It's The Sea Is Us. It's Joyce Cheng. And so there is a ton of steampunk out there that is basically thumbing its nose at it.
It's interesting. I've to an extent avoided the genre for this reason. So it's a nice perspective to hear on it.
Yeah,
it makes sense. There would be some, but looking forward to hearing more.
It seems like science fiction in a way. At least the works that I see that reach the Hugo Awards as nominees seem to be discussing with each other across categories the idea of colonialism and imperialism, and becoming much more about society now in the 2020s than it was. I mean, science fiction is always about society. It's always political, all that discussion. But it seems like everybody's talking to each other without even talking to each other around these specific topics. We recently had a show with Alexi Harrow, Arkady Martin, and Sean McGuire, speaking specifically around this and how we all, not me, we seem to be writing portal fantasy, and we seem to be writing imperialism, and we're now kind of coming together in a discussion going against that in science fiction. But not my words, and I might be misrepresenting.
Well, I think you said imperialism when you meant anti-imperialism. One thing.
Yes.
But yeah, it is a good direction. Other people who I can think of that are going in that direction, Margaret, no, I'm sorry, I'm losing all the words. Oh.
The words will come back, I promise.
Yeah.
They'll come back to you.
Maybe not. But there are a lot of people who are now exploring this, whereas before, when I first conceived of Everfair back in 2009, I was scrabbling hard to find examples. Now there's N.K. Jemisin, there's Diana Foe, there's A.J. Hartley, there's a ton of others. So it is a movement.
It is.
I know, Margaret Killjoy is who I was trying to think of.
There is something acknowledging what you said about what these genres could be about, or were about, or would be about. There is something so wondrous and magical about steampunk, westerns, and the combination thereof that I find very charming, personally. And I wonder if it had to be the 2020s for us to reach a point when we can address these differently.
I don't know. I've been addressing it for 4 years now, and
you're a leader. You're a visionary. Now you will probably find something else to write about, or remain the leader and say, "Oh yes, I started this," or "Oh, look at this, something new because I'm a visionary." I'm saying the change has happened. It's here. Okay. What's next for Nisi Shawl?
Well, I'm writing Kinning. It is sequel to Everfair, so it's set in 1921, and it is about empathy and connections. So I would say because it's past the steampunk point, it might be called diesel punk. Sure, let's call it that.
Wow. Okay, I think I was pushing too hard for that. I just enjoy the work. But have there been other people with you pushing for this earlier on when people weren't necessarily writing this?
Yeah, the Silver Goggles website, again, that was run by Jamie Go. I really was hard pressed to find examples, but they were out there. Someone who's been doing this for a while also, and he calls what he does steam funk rather than steampunk, is Milton Davis. And then along with him, Balogun Ojetade, he put together a sort of a steampunk novel series with Harriet Tubman as the protagonist. Okay. Yeah, it's out there, and I'm glad to hear that it's catching on.
At this stage, maybe I should just stop and say, you know what? Thank you. It's not easy to get things moving, get things started, and you've done one wonderful and marvelous job. And let's listen to more music. Next up, we have a song inspired by volcanoes. And it's about grandmother magma.
Okay.
Shall we listen?
Grandmother Magma, she feeds us all. She is the source of our explosive force. Deep underground, down in a fiery hall, she feeds us all. Her big girls and her small girls, you issue warnings. here comes a big one. You'd better all run. We shoot it up with no guns. We kill your instruments before they read us. Who has freed us? That same old dame who feeds us. Grandmother Magma, she feeds us all. She is the source of our explosive force. Deep underground down in a fiery hall, she feeds us all, her big girls and her small girls. You see a string of giant firecrackers and ask what factors prompt these burning actors. Exploding jewels on a necklace chain while ashes rain, make naps and die in pain. Grandmother Magma, she feeds us all. She is the source of our explosive force. Deep underground down in a fiery hall, she feeds us all, her big girls and her small girls. You'll never find our deepest secret, not even if we tell you where to look, not even if we spell it out for you. You'll never see that recipe in Granny's old cookbook. She kneads her hot dough in stony hands, she lets it stand in molten pans. She is the oven and she is the baker, island maker and death toll taker. Grandmother Magma, elle nous nourrit, elle est la source de notre force. Dans sa réfectoire si profonde de feu, elle nous nourrit, ces grandes et petites jeunes filles. Grandmother Magma, she feeds us all. She is the source of our explosive force. Deep underground down in a fiery hall, she feeds us all, her big girls and her small girls.
Yep.
Yep. I'm not gonna sigh. I'm gonna push you.
Why? What?
Well, we had this thing going where we just listened and we made noises and it seemed to be good conversation. But this song seems, at least from observing you, seems to have put you into a different place in a way. Penny, for your thoughts.
Well, just I think I guess I'm thinking about what I wanted to happen and what was happening, and the difference between the two. But I don't know. Maybe what I wanted to happen is sort of coming across in that. I wish I had been able to find a lyric sheet for it. And I will say that there is now a Grandmother Magma column in the book reviews that I edit. I edit book reviews for Cascadia Subduction Zone, and we have a column called Grandmother Magma. So it's still with me.
Who is, what is, where is Grandmother Magma?
So I heard that there was a theory that when there's a string of volcanoes, they all draw from a sort of a magma chamber, that all the magma comes from the same place. And the article that I read about this phenomenon called it the grandmother magma. So that to me became personalized as an old woman who lives underground and occasionally shoots off flaming mountains. And, you know, there was some other things I was reading about Mount St. Helens and people dying as they tried to research these explosions. And I found it very compelling.
Spiritually, is, if not before now, Grandmother Magma a real entity for you?
I'm curious, people dying as they tried to research this? What was?
Oh yes, people were recording, you know, the seismic activity under Mount St. Helens, and could not get out in time and were killed.
Wow.
Yeah. Talk about giving your life for science. In my tradition, there is Agayu, who is traditionally seen as a masculine deity that is in charge of the underground fire. But, you know, in other traditions, there's, for instance, Pele, who is the goddess of the volcanoes in Hawaii.
I was just thinking, considering the impact this has had on you and how you have kept thinking about it over the years, and that there was human sacrifice, apparently, in a fantasy book. This would definitely be a real ascended entity by now.
What was that about human sacrifice?
The people who died under the mountain. I was just taking a liberal hand with the description.
Yes, because yes, I guess I could see it as, but you know, usually when we talk about human sacrifice, we talk about it as something that's being forced on someone else, and this would have been a volunteer activity. The people who died knew they were in danger. They knew they were walking into danger.
I often go to extremes to bring about something. I apologize if that was perhaps not the best way of speaking and hurt anybody. I was just wondering, it seems to be more than a song. It seems to be something that follows you.
Well, it certainly is an idea that's followed me since, as I said, I'm still, there still is a grandmother magma in my life. Yeah. Okay,
I'll take a step back and maybe ask you again about this in a year or so when I know what I'm actually asking. But this brings us, I guess, to the final song of the night. It's night over here. I know it's not over there. And it's called I Can't Remember.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this one came out of the end of a love affair, when the person that I was in love with was a pathological liar. So I believe that this person's name was Robert Brazo, but, you know, I'm probably not too clear about anything else. I found that I was in such pain that what I wanted to do was completely forget everything connected with my experience with this person, and that's what the song is basically about wanting to forget and realizing the costs of forgetting. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Shame, because I would have, even if not about the story, I would have liked to understand what the cost of forgetting means.
Oh, the cost of forgetting is that you lose more than you thought you were going to lose.
Okay, then. Let's listen to the song. Thank you.
There was something I forgot about you. I can't remember. It was important, there's no doubt about it. I can't remember. I can't remember it. I can't remember it. I can't remember it now. There was someone, he made me feel some way. Someday last week it must have been his birthday. I can't remember it. I can't remember it. I can't remember it now. There was some place I was going sometime. Was it a short walk or maybe a long time? I can't remember it. I can't remember it. I can't remember it now. I can't remember it. I can't remember it. I can't remember it now.
I would like to thank you. I do have one more thing to ask you, but I believe this has been a great experience getting to know you, your inspiration, your thoughts. I truly appreciate your flexibility with me when I went off script and kind of just try to go on a topic and try to explore if there is something there. And also appreciate you putting me down when it didn't work out. Do you have
Yeah, thank you so much for letting us. Like it's kind of felt like going on a road trip or just like sitting and listening to an album with somebody that I haven't like taken the time to do that in a while, and the fact that it's not all music we could just stream from somewhere, but that we get to hear it with the creator and get kind of a glimpse into music we don't have access to otherwise has been really cool.
Thank you.
Also, learning about you, I mean, knowing your work or having a good conversation with you is one thing, but you opening up to us and sharing with us. And I just want to say thank you, really.
You're welcome.
Do you, before my last bit, let's call it, do you have something you perhaps want to share with us?
His birthday is November 1st.
Do you want us to send him, like, create a campaign to send him a lot of really rude things to his home or something?
I don't even know if he's still alive.
Well, I have nothing smart to say, so I will be quiet. And I will take us to, that happens sometimes, and I will take us to the final bit here, which is small fandoms. We already discussed, in a way, your love for Steely Dan, and I know that's quite a big thing still today.
Yes.
But I also, I shared with you one of my small fandoms, even if there are millions of people out there doing it, it's relatively small. Yoga with Adrian on YouTube is one of my favorite small fandoms. And I understand you have your own small, huge fan thing that you are following.
So I am the proud owner of 4 t-shirts that were put out by this Facebook group of Sam Heughan fans. I am a big advocate of Outlander, which was a book by Diana Gabaldon, a series of books actually, and I am most deeply involved in and deeply absorbed by the Outlander television series on Stars. The people who are with me on this, we call ourselves Heughan's Hooligans. And yes, I think actually that Sam Heughan may be, he might possibly be a mutant. He's, I think he's one of the greatest actors ever, and I think that the story in which he plays Jamie, it is obviously written by a woman, and it is obviously written with the idea that there is actually a perfect person out there to fulfill our fantasies. And this person is fictional.
Hey, so was Socrates, and look at the... I'll stop here. I really appreciate you sharing so much with us and opening up to us and spending this time with the audience. I don't take it for granted. We don't take it for granted, and just want to say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And thanks for putting me back in touch with my music.
I don't think we can take credit for that, but I do think we need to thank Alan again for all his work.
Yes.
And with that, I would like to thank the crew. I would like to thank Nisi again. Your wonderful fairy godmother who came in. It's not fairy, sorry. Your wonderful godmother. Maybe do you think she could have been a good fairy godmother?
Absolutely.
There we go. I'm done.
Yeah, that seems like what a real life fairy godmother would be like to me.
Exactly. We should take that character, make it a character in a movie or something, like a Disney movie of a modern godmother or something. Still jealous. And also, next week, we have a wonderful show, which we're calling Science Fiction Fantasy Marketing Masters. We're going to talk about people who were there for the original Star Wars, for the marketing of Harry Potter, on self-publishing. And it's going to be awesome. And I'm excited for that show. I've been working on that show for a long time now. Thank you all for tuning in, and goodbye. Nisi, if you could stay with us for a couple of minutes.